Have you ever found yourself in a situation where emotions and family dynamics collide, creating a storm of guilt, confusion, and undeniable desire? It's a difficult journey, but today, we're diving deep into a story that explores the complexities of love, betrayal, and the choices that define us. You might think this is just another tale of forbidden love, but trust me, there's so much more beneath the surface. The twists, the emotions, and the revelation will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about relationships. Stay with us until the end, because the details we share today aren't just for your entertainment. They hold profound lessons that could change the way you view your own relationships and emotional struggles. Before we immerse ourselves in the depths of this story, I want to take a moment to express just how much your support means to us. Your presence here, your clicks, and your engagement are not merely actions. They are the fuel that powers our passion and drives us to keep creating. So, I kindly ask, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, give our videos a thumbs up, and let us know what you think in the comments. Each like, each comment, each share, is more than just a number. It's a tangible sign of the deep connection we're building together, a community founded on meaningful conversations and shared stories. We are immensely grateful for your support, as it's your energy that motivates us to continue delivering the kind of content that resonates on a soul-deep level. So, take a moment to like, share, and comment. You matter to us, and your interaction is what helps us grow. And please, don't forget to watch until the very end of this video, because the details, the twists, and the revelations we share will leave you breathless. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I encourage you to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. I'm eager to hear your thoughts on today's topic. If you enjoy the content, please comment 1 below. If it doesn't resonate with you, leave a 0. Your feedback is crucial as it helps me create better videos that align with your interests. Now, let's get started. Before we immerse ourselves in the depths of this story, I want to take a moment to express just how much your support means to us. Your presence here, your clicks, and your engagement are not merely actions. They are the fuel that powers our passion and drives us to keep creating. So, I kindly ask, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, give our videos a thumbs up, and let us know what you think in the comments. Each like, each comment, each share, is more than just a number. It's a tangible sign of the deep connection we're building together, a community founded on meaningful conversations and shared stories. We are immensely grateful for your support, as it's your energy that motivates us to continue delivering the kind of content that resonates on a soul-deep level. So, take a moment to like, share, and comment. You matter to us, and your interaction is what helps us grow. And please, don't forget to watch until the very end of this video, because the details, the twists, and the revelations we share will leave you breathless. It all began on a quiet, seemingly ordinary day when I reached out to Carlos with a simple invitation of a coffee. There was no grand intention behind it, no hidden agenda. Just a desire for a moment of casual conversation. Carlos had always been someone with whom I could be completely open, a friend who never judged, who listened intently, and who made the mundane feel somehow special. We chose a small cafe near my home, a cozy tucked-away spot where the air was always filled with the warm, inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. As we settled in, surrounded by the low hum of soft chatter and the clink of coffee cups, I felt a familiar comfort. But as we exchanged words, as we shared stories and trivial observations, something unexpected began to stir within me. An energy, unspoken yet undeniable, began to thread its way through our conversation. A subtle chemistry that tethered us in a way that felt far beyond the bounds of mere friendship. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and each time I found myself in Carlos's presence, I was consumed by a feeling I could no longer deny. It was as though my heart had a mind of its own, racing uncontrollably with every word he spoke, every glance he gave. I tried to fight it, to reason my way out of it, but it was a battle I was losing with every passing day. The turmoil inside me was overwhelming. How could I feel this way about the man who was my daughter's husband? Every time our paths crossed, a deep sense of guilt gnawed at me, telling me I was betraying the very fabric of my family. Yet, despite this voice of reason, despite the ache of shame that bloomed within me, I couldn't escape the pull. Each smile from Carlos seemed to pierce through the walls I had tried so hard to build around my heart. Each glance, each fleeting touch, ignited something that I couldn't quell. It was as though my body had betrayed me, responding to him in ways I could neither control nor explain. The deeper I sank into this emotional whirlwind, the more I realized I was treading dangerously close to a precipice. One night, Anna decided to host a family dinner at our house, a simple gathering that was meant to bring everyone together, to laugh, to share, to reconnect. The house buzzed with the sound of laughter, the clinking of plates, and the warmth of family. It was a beautiful evening, full of life, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was unfolding. Carlos and I exchanged subtle glances across the table, glances that carried weight, laden with meaning, as if we were silently communicating something that no one else could understand. A secret. Our secret. I felt my heart skip a beat each time our eyes met, the connection between us growing stronger, more undeniable. How could I possibly want a man who belonged to my own daughter? It was a question that swirled in my mind, bringing with it an avalanche of guilt, confusion, and longing. It felt like a betrayal, a violation of everything I held dear. As the evening unfolded, the atmosphere grew more relaxed. Anna, ever the gracious host, excused herself to the kitchen to prepare dessert, and for a brief moment, Carlos and I were left alone at the table. The world outside the room seemed to blur, leaving only the two of us in a suspended moment, caught in a web of emotions that neither of us had expected. The conversation shifted from casual to personal, and in that moment, I felt a shift in him, a subtle change that mirrored my own internal unrest. He reached out, his hand brushing mine, and in that single touch, something changed forever. It was a quiet touch, but it sent a wave of heat flooding through me. I could feel his pulse, feel the warmth radiating from his skin, and it was as if every nerve in my body ignited. His hand lingered for a moment longer than necessary, and in that instant, I saw something in his eyes, a vulnerability, a rawness, a pain that mirrored my own. He wasn't just my son-in-law in that moment. He was a man who was struggling with his own emotions, his own desires. And so was I. The connection between us deepened, becoming impossible to ignore. There were moments when our bodies brushed accidentally, his hand brushing against my arm as he passed, the slight touch of his knee against mine under the table, and each time, it felt like a spark igniting between us. The world around us ceased to exist, and all that mattered was the heat, the energy, the longing that passed between us in the silence. It was a dangerous game we were playing, one that both thrilled and terrified me. I knew that each touch, each stolen glance, was leading us further down a path we couldn't return from. But I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't stop the emotions that were rising within me, emotions that I had never planned to feel, emotions that I had no right to have. And yet, with every passing moment, I was pulled deeper into the web we had spun, knowing full well that the consequences of this connection could destroy everything we had worked so hard to build. As our time together stretched on, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of desire, confusion, and guilt. I was trapped in an emotional maze, where the only way out seemed to be Carlos. But how could I want him? How could I betray the woman who had brought him into our lives? It was a question that haunted me, yet every glance, every touch, only pulled me deeper into the storm. And with each moment, the storm grew stronger, more uncontrollable, until it felt like nothing could stop it. And so, I was left standing at the edge, terrified of what might happen next, yet unable to resist the magnetic pull that connected us in ways that were far beyond the reach of reason. One afternoon, when Anna was away at work, I received an unexpected call from Carlos. His voice on the other end was uncertain, yet there was an undeniable urgency in his words. He asked if he could come over. I hesitated, my mind flooded with conflicting emotions, anxiety, guilt, and, surprisingly, a deep, unsettling excitement. My instincts screamed at me to say no, to protect what little sense of normalcy I had left. But there was something in his voice, a vulnerability that I couldn't ignore. I agreed, though my heart pounded in my chest with every passing second. When Carlos arrived, the weight of the moment hit me full force. I hadn't expected to feel so nervous, but there I was, struggling to catch my breath as he stepped through the door. We sat on the couch, the space between us charged with a tension that was almost tangible. The air seemed to thicken, and every beat of my heart echoed loudly in my ears. Carlos settled beside me, his eyes fixed on mine with an intensity that left me breathless. There was a strange mix of longing and fear in his gaze, as though he, too, was battling emotions that he didn't fully understand or know how to handle. "Lucia," he began, his voice unsteady yet firm. "There's something I need to tell you." My pulse quickened, and my breath caught in my throat as I braced myself for what was to come. He paused, as if searching for the right words, before continuing. "Since I met you, I felt a connection with you that I can't ignore. I don't know if I should feel this way, but I can't help it." His confession hung in the air, thick with raw emotion. I was frozen, struggling to process his words. My heart seemed to stop, my mind clouded with a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings that threatened to overwhelm me. I wanted to push him away, to shout at him that this was wrong, that it could never be. The rational side of me screamed for me to stop this madness before it went any further, to reject what we both knew was impossible. But there was another part of me, one that I had tried so hard to suppress, that recognized the truth in his words. What had started as a simple bond of affection had evolved into something far deeper, more profound. The connection between us was undeniable, something that had grown over time, something I couldn't pretend wasn't there. Carlos continued, his voice trembling now, betraying his own inner turmoil. "This is complicated. You're not just my daughter's mother, you're also a wonderful woman. What I feel, what you feel, shouldn't be happening." His words stung, but they also resonated deeply. I felt the truth of them echo through my chest, and as they sank in, I could feel the fragile walls I had spent so long building around myself beginning to crumble. He moved closer, and without thinking, I reached for his hand. Our fingers intertwined, a simple gesture, but one that held so much weight. It was a silent admission of the feelings we had both been hiding for so long. "Lucia," Carlos whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "I can't stop thinking about you. Every time we're together, I feel like there's something more between us. I can't keep ignoring it." His sincerity, his vulnerability, struck me like a physical blow. It was too much to ignore, too much to fight. In that moment, the entire world seemed to disappear. Doubts, fears, and all the consequences I had tried to avoid faded away, leaving only the magnetic pull between us. Without a second thought, my voice broke the silence, softer than I intended but filled with honesty. "I feel the same. I've been fighting against it, but I can't anymore." With those words, I felt the last of my resistance slip away, and everything changed. The kiss that followed was nothing short of explosive, an outpouring of every emotion I had kept bottled up for so long. It was a kiss full of longing, desire, and frustration. It was both tender and fierce, a moment of sweet release. Our lips met in a rush, and the world seemed to stop, as if time itself held its breath. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. For a brief, perfect moment, we existed only in each other's arms. But as quickly as it came, that blissful peace was shattered by the harsh reality that loomed just beyond the door. Anna would be home soon, and the weight of what we had just shared came crashing down on me. Guilt swirled in my chest like a storm, an overwhelming tide of shame that threatened to drown me. "I don't know if we can continue this," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's too much at stake." The words felt like they were tearing me apart, but I couldn't ignore the truth of them. Carlos nodded in silent understanding, his own face shadowed with the same conflict. "You're right," he said quietly, his voice tinged with sorrow. "But I can't ignore what I feel for you." There was a sadness in his tone, an acceptance of the impossible situation we found ourselves in. I could feel it deep in my soul, that this wasn't going to be easy for either of us. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, there was something undeniable between us, something that refused to be silenced. "Maybe we should take some time to think about this," he suggested, his voice barely audible. The sadness in his words reverberated through me, and I knew that this was not a decision either of us was prepared to make lightly. We were caught in a web of emotions, one that we had created together, and I knew there was no easy way out. Still, I couldn't deny the intensity of what had just happened between us. The days that followed were a storm of conflicting emotions. I tried to focus on the mundane, to push the thoughts of Carlos from my mind, but he was always there, lingering in my thoughts, in my heart. The distance between us felt unbearable, like an ocean separating us, yet I knew I couldn't ignore what had transpired. Each time I saw Anna, the guilt hit me like a punch to the gut. I didn't want to betray her, to hurt her in any way, but at the same time, I couldn't escape the truth of my feelings. It was as if I were living in two worlds, one where everything was fine, and one where everything was falling apart. Eventually, the weight of it all became too much to bear. I knew I had to face my feelings, to confront the reality of what had happened between Carlos and me. The truth was out there now, and I couldn't hide from it any longer. Something had shifted inside me, and I needed to find clarity, no matter the cost. One day, I reached out to Carlos with a message that felt heavier than any words I had ever written. I invited him to meet me at the same cafe where everything had begun, where our connection, pure and undeniable, had taken root. As the day approached, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. When he arrived, his presence filled the space between us, and I could almost taste the tension in the air. But beneath that tension, there was something else, a quiet, fragile hope that we could find a way forward, despite everything that had happened. Carlos sat across from me, his eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that seemed to search my very soul. "Lucia," he began, his voice soft, almost a whisper, but filled with so much meaning it sent a shiver down my spine. "I've been thinking about us. I can't let this end. I feel like we've found something special, something valuable." His words hit me like a wave, sweeping away the reservations that had held me back for so long. I nodded, agreeing with him in my heart, but my mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I knew he was right. We had something undeniable, something deeper than either of us could have anticipated. But was it worth the cost? Could we really navigate the treacherous waters we had stepped into? "I think we need to talk about what this means for us," I replied, my voice trembling but determined. Each word I spoke felt like an echo in the vastness of the cafe, reverberating with the weight of the decisions we had yet to make. As we spoke, the layers of our emotions unraveled, and the complexity of our situation began to take shape. We were no longer just two people caught in a fleeting moment. We were two people facing an impossible dilemma, one that would require more courage than either of us had ever known. Carlos, ever the thoughtful and introspective man, expressed his desire to be with me, but he also knew that he couldn't keep living in this lie. He had to be honest with Anna. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on both of us as we spoke, our words like sharp knives, cutting through the layers of our lives, exposing truths we had tried to hide. We both knew that continuing to deny what we felt for each other would only bring more pain, more heartbreak, but confronting it meant shattering the world we had known. The conversation grew deeper, more profound. We spoke about love, what it meant to each of us, how our connection had changed the course of our lives, and the lines we had crossed. We talked about how love evolves, how it can grow in unexpected ways, and how sometimes, despite our best efforts, it cannot be ignored. With every word, the emotional distance between us seemed to shrink, the connection between us growing stronger, more undeniable. But with that closeness also came the heavy realization of the consequences we were about to face. "What do we do with this?" I asked, my voice filled with concern, the weight of the question pressing down on me. "We can't keep ignoring what we feel. It's tearing us apart." My heart ached as I spoke, but I knew I couldn't continue to live in the shadows of my own emotions. I needed clarity. We needed clarity. We couldn't keep pretending that the bond between us wasn't real, that it didn't exist, because it did. It was alive in every glance, in every touch, in every word we shared. Carlos ran his hand through his hair, a gesture that always indicated he was deep in thought. His brow furrowed, his gaze turning inward as he processed the weight of everything we had just confessed. "I don't want to hurt Anna," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "She's important to us, and I can't bear the thought of causing her pain. But I also can't deny that what's between us is real." His words hung in the air, heavy with the truth that we could no longer ignore. The forbidden nature of our connection, the taboo that surrounded it, only made it feel more intense, more undeniable. But even with all the guilt, even with the fear that consumed me, I couldn't ignore the spark in his eyes, the glint of desire, of connection, that had grown in the chaos we had both tried to avoid. The air between us grew thick, the weight of our truth pressing down on us like a heavy blanket. It was a forbidden love, one that defied every social norm, every rule we had ever known. But despite the guilt that churned in my stomach, despite the storm of emotions that raged within me, I couldn't look away from him. And in that moment, I knew I had to make a choice that would change everything. "Let's make the difficult decision to be honest with Anna," I proposed, my voice shaking with the enormity of what we were about to do. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew it would hurt, maybe more than either of us could bear. But I also knew that the fear of losing what we had was far more terrifying than the fear of facing the truth. If we continued to hide our feelings, to pretend that nothing had changed, we would only bring more pain into our lives. And I couldn't bear that. Not when I knew, deep in my heart, that what we shared was real, and that we deserved a chance to live in that truth. Carlos looked at me, his expression torn, his emotions as raw as mine. He didn't speak immediately, but the look in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. We both understood the gravity of what we were about to do. There was no going back now, no more pretending. We were standing at the edge of something we couldn't undo, and all we could do was face it, together. And in that moment, despite the fear, despite the doubt, I knew we had made the only decision that mattered. We had to be honest, not just with Anna, but with ourselves. The truth was the only way forward, no matter how painful it might be. Carlos agreed with a slight nod, his expression serious, as if he knew we were about to enter a storm. With a knot in my stomach, we agreed it was time to face the truth. That night, I gathered the courage to speak with Anna. I watched her walk through the door, and my heart raced. It was as if everything was about to change. I had lived for this moment, where the past and the future collided. "Anna, I need to talk to you about something important," I began, feeling the sweat on my forehead and the weight of my words in the air. "Sure, Mom," she replied, her face showing concern, and I could see the innocence in her eyes. I looked at her, and I knew I had to be honest. I couldn't let the words get stuck in my throat. Carlos and I have developed a deeper connection than it should be. It pains me to say it, but I can't hide it anymore. Anna's reaction was immediate. Her eyes widened in surprise and her voice trembled as she asked, "What are you saying? You like Carlos?" I felt the pain in her voice, a heartbreaking echo that reverberated in my heart. The atmosphere became electric, and the space between us grew tense, almost unbearable. "Anna, please, listen. What I feel for Carlos is complicated. I never wanted this to happen, but over time, the connection between us grew. It's something I can't ignore, and I thought you deserved to know." As I spoke, I saw her world crumble around her, her face a mix of confusion and pain. "How could you do this to me, Mom?" she whispered, her voice breaking, and in that moment, I knew that the weight of my decisions was falling squarely on my shoulders. "Carlos is my friend, and now you're ruining everything." Her anguish in those words was crushing, and the love I had once shared with her now felt like a betrayal. "I love you, Anna. You're my daughter, and that will never change, but I can't change what I feel. It's an internal battle I've been fighting, and I didn't want this to tear us apart, I responded, feeling each word building a wall between us. I wanted her to understand, but the truth was, there was no way to save both relationships without losing something in the process. Tears began to slip down her cheeks. I don't understand how this could be love. It feels selfish. I can't believe you're willing to risk our family for this. Anna's words pierced through me like arrows, each one targeting the fragility of our connection. Anna, I know this is incredibly hard to process. I understand, and I don't want to minimize the pain I've caused you, but I have to be honest with you. What I feel for Carlos is not a threat to the deep love I have for you. That love hasn't changed, and I promise you, I never thought of replacing you. I know we're on a path filled with pain and confusion, and while love is a beautiful and profound force, it can also be complicated, and sometimes heartbreaking. Her voice broke again, and she asked softly, "What if this doesn't stop? What if Carlos chooses you instead of me?" The vulnerability and fear in her tone struck me deeply, and in that moment, I realized the magnitude of the decisions I had made and how they would forever alter our lives. I don't want that to happen, Anna. I don't want to lose you, and I don't want this situation to drive a wedge between us. I hope we can find a way to heal, to rebuild together, and come out of this stronger. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. She looked down, and in a quiet, almost inaudible voice, she asked, "What if Carlos decides to be with you, and not with me?" The weight of her question hung in the air, and I could feel the tension in the room. My heart broke as I realized how deep the hurt ran, how irreversibly my choices had changed everything. I don't want that to happen, Anna. I don't want to lose you. You are and always will be the most important person to me, and I promise you, I'll do everything I can to protect what we've built, I said, tears slipping down my own cheeks. Her gaze met mine, and I saw the pain in her eyes, but also a flicker of understanding. She nodded slowly, and for a moment, we just sat there in silence, both feeling the weight of what had been said. The future felt uncertain, full of questions we didn't have answers to. The reality of our situation settled in. We were facing a future that was uncertain, a path fraught with challenges. There was no easy solution, no guide to follow. And yet, there was a part of me that clung to the hope that honesty, no matter how painful, could somehow be the key to our redemption. As the days passed, Anna and I both struggled with the changes that had shaken the foundation of our family. The silence between us often felt unbearable, and yet, there was also a sense of determination to find a way forward. We spoke openly about our feelings, trying to navigate the emotions and confusion that swirled around us. The pain was still fresh, but the conversations, though difficult, were helping us to begin rebuilding trust. Our lives had been irrevocably altered, and the road ahead was filled with uncertainty. But even in the midst of the chaos, I couldn't help but hold on to the hope that, somehow, we would find a way to move forward, to heal, and to rediscover the bond we had once shared. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Before we say goodbye, if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to click the subscribe button. Your support, though it may seem like a small gesture, means a lot to us and inspires us to continue creating heartfelt content. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you liked what we shared today, as each interaction helps us grow and allows us to continue connecting with you through stories that matter. Thank you for being part of this community. As we continue to navigate this complex and painful situation, I couldn't help but reflect on the choices I had made and their consequences. The weight of my decisions felt unbearable at times, but there was also a growing awareness that we couldn't move forward without fully confronting the reality of what had happened. Carlos and I both understood the stakes. Our relationship, though born from genuine feelings, was a betrayal of trust in many ways. We had crossed lines that should never have been crossed, and now we had to face the consequences of those actions. Every moment I spent with him, I felt the tension of living in a secret world, a world that was unsustainable and could not last forever. But at the same time, I knew that denying what I felt would have been just as impossible. Anna, too, was grappling with the enormity of the situation. She was hurt, angry, and confused, but in some ways, I saw that she was also struggling to understand the feelings that had led me to this point. There were moments when I thought she might forgive me, but I also knew that trust, once broken, would take time to rebuild. We both found ourselves trapped in a strange, suspended reality, a fragile space between the life we once knew and the uncertain, often terrifying future that lay ahead. It felt as though we were living in a perpetual state of limbo, frozen in a moment that seemed to last forever, where time itself stood still, and yet every passing second was heavy with the weight of what we couldn't escape. Each moment, each exchange between Carlos and me, was tinged with the knowledge that we were walking a razor's edge, a precipice that, one wrong step, would plunge us into consequences too painful to comprehend. The moments of tenderness that existed between us, though fleeting and filled with warmth, were fleeting distractions from the storm that raged within me, a storm of guilt, longing, and confusion. Those moments, when our eyes met, when we shared a brief touch, were precious reminders of the undeniable connection we shared. But they were also painful, each one a painful reminder that this connection was, by nature, forbidden. Despite the undeniable attraction, the pull that we had on each other, I knew the truth, the deep truth I couldn't escape. No matter what I felt for Carlos, my most important relationship was with Ana. She was my daughter, the very part of me that I had created and nurtured, the one bond that was more sacred than anything else in my life. As much as I had come to care for Carlos, as much as my emotions twisted and turned in 100 conflicting directions, my love for Ana could never be overshadowed. That love had been built on years of shared history, of moments too precious to throw away. I would never, under any circumstances, allow myself to choose something temporary, something transient, over that bond. The guilt of what had happened, what had been allowed to happen, was a constant companion. It gnawed at me every moment, a relentless presence in the back of my mind, urging me to face the depth of my actions. I couldn't hide from it, no matter how much I tried. It was there when I woke up, there when I lay down at night, and there, suffocating me, as I tried to go through the motions of life. The weight of that guilt was unbearable, pressing in on me like a vice, knowing that I had betrayed the trust of the one person in the world who meant more to me than anything. But as heavy as the guilt was, I also knew deep in my soul that the road to redemption, to healing, would not be a quick or easy one. It would be long, filled with difficult decisions, painful revelations, and the painful task of rebuilding what I had broken. I had no illusions that things would ever be the same, that I could simply pick up the pieces and put everything back as it was. But that didn't mean I wasn't willing to try. I wasn't willing to give up without a fight. I promised myself in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts that I would do everything in my power to make things right, to rebuild the trust one had shattered. I knew it would be a Herculean task. I knew that the road ahead would be filled with heartache, that I would have to face the consequences of my actions head-on. But the love I felt for Ana, for the family we had built together, was stronger than the shame that held me captive. I would not let my mistakes define me. I would fight, even when I didn't know how, to make things right again. No matter how difficult the journey, no matter how painful the self-reflection, I was ready to take it. I was ready to do whatever it took to prove to Ana that, despite the mistakes I had made, my love for her was unwavering, unconditional. I knew that the trust between us would not be easily restored. It would take time. It would take patience. And it would take complete honesty. But I was willing to endure whatever came, as long as it meant healing and rebuilding our bond. As I slowly closed the door on this chapter of my life, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. The grief of what we had shared, the love, the passion, the connection, was not something easily left behind. But I also knew that it was necessary. In that moment, I realized that while this chapter had to end, the story wasn't over. The journey ahead would be filled with profound changes, shifts in how we all saw ourselves, how we interacted with each other. We all had our own healing to go through, our own scars to face. I knew the road would be anything but easy. The emotional upheaval, the shattered pieces of our lives, would take years to piece back together. But even in the face of all that, I was determined. I believed in the power of time, of love, and of truth to heal even the deepest wounds. This was not going to be an easy journey, and there were no guarantees that things would ever go back to the way they were. But as I stood on the precipice of this new reality, with the weight of everything that had happened weighing heavily on my heart, I knew that I had to keep moving forward. There was no turning back. What had been broken couldn't be fixed overnight. But I had to trust that, with time, honesty, and love, we could find a way to move forward together. It would be difficult, it would take everything I had, but I believed, with all my heart, that the love I had for Anna, the unwavering, fierce love I had for my daughter, would be the foundation upon which we could rebuild. And that belief, no matter how small it seemed in the face of everything else, was the hope that would carry me through the darkest moments of this journey. I was ready to face whatever came, because I knew that, in the end, the love we shared was the only thing worth fighting for. So, what have you learned from today's story? Every step of this emotional journey reveals something crucial about love, trust, and facing the consequences of our actions. What's one thing from this video that resonated with you? We want to hear from you, your thoughts, your reflections, and how this might inspire you to practice something new in your own life. Drop a comment below and share what stood out for you, what you'll take with you moving forward. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps us create more meaningful content, and we're so grateful to have you in this community. Thank you for being here, for supporting us, and for being a part of these powerful, thought-provoking conversations. Let's keep this journey going together.